It's time for another edition of Tampa 2. Casey Phillips here with staff writer Brianna Dix. And yet again, we have an outcome that is not what we were hoping for.
Yes.
But we also have a very exciting division game coming up. So we have plenty to cover on this. And I feel like this has been the team's mantra this year is even when the outcome wasn't what they wanted, there are so many encouraging things.
Definitely.
And that Coach Bowles has talked about this of where it's never the same thing or one thing, and where one week all of a sudden this part of the game is going really well and this part is struggling,
right.
and then the next week it's vice versa. So it's going to be interesting to see if down the stretch they can put it all together, because we've seen every
Bits
game
and pieces,
there's
right.
there's a part that is like, yes, this is what we want. So let's start off already just with this last game against the Colts and what stood out to you on, let's start with the offensive side.
Well, yes, I would say there definitely were a lot of positive things to take away, as you mentioned. I think just the big recurring theme that we've seen over and over kind of play out throughout the course of the season is the self-inflicted wounds. And the coaching staff, players have all talked about it this week, just the pre-snap penalties, the drops, the turnover, and all of these things just kill your momentum. They cost you time, and it always seems like it comes in just these timely moments. A huge play is negated when you get that explosive play to kind of sustain drives, move down the field, but also just finishing plays. You know, when you're down in the red zone, coming away with 7, you know, it seemed like when the game opened, you had that big, long, methodical drive, and they weren't able to cash in. So just moments like that, but also offensively, I think one of the most positive things for me was the run game. You know, they've been able to kind of supplement and manufacture the run game a little bit, getting Rashard White in space as they kind of worked on the mid zone, those dual concepts. But you saw the offensive line get the push. Rashard White had several, I think like 9, 11-yard runs up the interior. So to see that kind of take shape as they've continued to place an emphasis on it was really encouraging. And then also just Mike Evans, man. 2 touchdowns. And I think and even Baker Mayfield talked about it a little bit this week behind the podium, but his first touchdown, I think for me, was just vintage Mike Evans. Like this subtle, and I think a lot of times when you think of Mike Evans, a lot of people kind of overemphasize his high point ability, the cheat code on the back shoulder fades and all of those things. But I think his just route running as a whole gets overlooked a little bit. But on that route, just kind of baiting the defensive back on the inside leverage, and then he just is wide open. So that, and then defensively, kind of a similar note with Kalijah Cansey, Joe Tryon had sacks, but just Kalijah Cansey won the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Month for November, but just his ability to kind of take these perceived knocks when he came out of Pitt and turn them into strengths, I think has been really, really incredible. And not only has he lived up to the first-round draft status hype, but he's also exceeded those expectations. And, you know, all of the chatter about, is he going to be able to hold up in the run game? Is he going to be moved off his spot? Because he is undersized, shorter arms, but just how he's been able to just invade the backfield, knife through gaps, the first step quickness, the balance. I mean, it's tied for the most tackles for loss right now in the league. And not only that, but he missed 3 games with a calf injury. So just the added dimension that he's brought with his speed, I think you're really seeing that play out. And then also just Antoine Winfield Jr., Carlton Davis had a great game. I think they each had like 10 tackles. So just those positive things, but just being able to kind of piece it all together and play consistent complementary football is, I think, what I'll be definitely looking to see against the Panthers.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Rashard, I was just so excited to see that game for him, for the offensive line, for the offense as a whole. Because, yes, even though he's had yards in general of like scrimmage yards, this was the running back's game. Like this was a true running back game where it's his second career 100-yard game, and we all remember the other one was the Germany game. So been waiting for that to happen again. Career long run of 38 yards and career high yards per carry 6.7. That was the stat I loved. That yards per carry, because man, I mean, you can have a lot of yards, but if they've had to, you know, give you the ball like 30 times to accomplish that, that's never as good. To be able to have that kind of a yards per carry stat was great. Again, of course, it's helped a lot by that 138-yard run, and that's what we talked about, is there hadn't been those explosive runs that you just need every now and then to, again, keep the defense honest. I thought he ran hard and aggressive, that we've seen him out in space, but he also ran interior runs really aggressively. And I just wanted to shout out the interior of the line. Coach Bowles really praised them this week, that you saw they were getting that push. They were creating those holes that I think it was one of their better games, especially when it came to the run game. But Baker was sacked 6 times.
Yes.
So that is not ideal. And now, of course, I talked to Bowles about it on our show of like, okay, how much was this offensive line? How much was this Baker? How much was this a coverage sack? And he said it was kind of a mixture of all of those things. Right. So it's not like it was just straight up, offensive line giving up a quick sack, that there was a lot more to it, but definitely 6 is a higher number than you want. That's for dang sure.
Yes.
And we saw, again, a few struggles in the red zone offensively, especially that opening drive where they've still not scored a touchdown on the opening drive. And that is just such a killer when it comes to you want to get that lead. You want to get that momentum going. They got down to the 1 yard line. I felt like, man, this was it.
Yes.
Even like Coach Canales was asked about that. He's like, yeah, I was trying not to think about that of like, this is it. It's finally got to happen. And so I think that's definitely going to be something I'll be looking at this week of you've got to break that streak. You got to be able to get some of those 7 instead of 3s when you've worked so hard. The drive will look so good getting down there. And then somehow just little mistakes, little things. Again, not always the same thing, but I think that's going to be a big part of it. I would just want to say Baker's health is going to be such an interesting thing to keep an eye on, but I wanted to shout out his toughness where this is a guy where we know he was injured. We don't really know exactly what it felt like or how bad it was, but he was injured, and we're seeing him, he gets... I just thought about this one drive he had in the fourth quarter where he gets sacked and then he runs on that 3rd down, takes on a blocker, gets that crucial 3rd and 8, and then converts on 4th and 10 on this drive. And he then gets the 23-yard touchdown to Mike. What a stretch for Baker in that drive of just like willing it to keep going, making such crucial plays, like 3rd downs, 4th downs, just clutch stuff. I thought that was really amazing. And then, like you said, Mike Evans, man. I mean, we just should have a segment called Mike Evans, man. 70 yards, 2 touchdowns. And I love this stat. He has the 2nd most games among all active players with multiple touchdowns in a game. Man. He has 19 career games with multiple touchdowns. That's a wild amount. And then both Cade Otton and Payne Durham, loved that they had a couple really crucial plays. Love seeing that, and especially from Payne Durham. I mean, Cade Otton gets asked to do all the things. Yeah, that man is trying to be a route runner and a blocker and this, and he's playing every single snap most games. If you can start getting some of those kind of plays from Payne Durham, especially again in the red zone, which I think is a huge part of why they drafted him, is they saw him do this in college. He was this red zone target. He was able to make these big plays. I mean, to see him as a rookie mossing someone like that was great. I'm like, if we can get just a little bit more of that from him, I think that's going to take a lot of pressure off of Cade. It's going to add a whole other wrinkle, especially in the red zone, which would be awesome. On the defensive side of things, again, we came into the game first in the league in red zone defense, gave up a couple of those red zone touchdowns in the run game. But you're without Levante. We know what a huge thing that is. I think Servassier did a great job stepping in, but I mean, no one's going to be Levante. That's a ridiculous thing to ask anybody to be. And so it'll be interesting to see again. We'll get to the injury report in a minute, but if you're again without Levante, we know that's a big deal. Carlton, I love you brought up great game for him. Multiple passes, defensed for the 16th time in his career, and the interception. I just felt like that was such a big thing for Carlton and the whole secondary. Of just like, man, this has not been something we've been able to get a lot of. And I'm like, let's just hope that kind of broke the seal and that now it's just going to be coming all the time.
They all come in bunches. So we'll see.
And the same way we've said that we wanted to have a Mike Evans man segment. I love that you brought up Kalijah Cansey winning the Player of the Month. So I just want to give some Kalijah Cansey stats to give some perspective on this. I loved this. So he wins that. He's the first interior defensive lineman in team history to win that award, which I think is a pretty big deal. First Bucs rookie to win the award since Antoine Winfield. In the 4 games in the month of November, 10 tackles, 7 for loss, 4 quarterback hits, 2 sacks, and 1 pass defense. In just November, his 7 tackles for loss tied for the NFL lead among all players this month, alongside Levante David. Yeah. They were the 2 that tied for that stat, not too shabby. And he has 2 more tackles for loss than any other rookie. And he's ranked 2nd among all rookies with 14 pressures, tied for 2nd in QB hits, tied for 4th in sacks. It's insane. And like you said, missed a bunch of time. Yeah. It's incredible what he's doing. I just think it's so exciting. So we kind of hinted at it a couple times. The injury report.
Yes.
There's been a few weeks it's been rather important, and this feels like one of them.
So not great news, but Levante David has not practiced again this week with the groin injury. Jamel Dean is still out. He's been a non-participant. He is not in the boot anymore, so that's a positive gradual sign. Yes. Servassier Dennis has not participated in practice with the illness. Chris Godwin was added to the report yesterday with a neck injury, and he was a limited participant. Don't love that. And then Devin White downgraded to non-participation on Thursday. So obviously we're filming this Friday morning. Haven't gotten the report for today, but that's definitely something to watch, especially with Levante, Servassier, and Devin on there.
I think you and I are
not
potentially
loving
going to get
that
called.
For the inside linebackers.
Yep. You and I might be suiting up for the inside linebacker this week. All right, so now let's get into our one-on-one matchups that we're going to be excited to see in this game.
I am going to go with Luke Gedeke against Brian Burns, and then Rashard White against Frankie Louveau.
Okay.
I think those will be some key ones this week. And obviously I'm stealing like we always do. I had to steal a little bit of some stats from Scott Smith. But obviously recently the offensive line hasn't been quite as good in pass protection. But I loved this stat. Through the first 7 games of the season, Luke Gedeke has allowed the 9th lowest pressure rate among right tackles in the NFL.
Wow.
He's able to move guys off their spot in the run game. His quickness, the anticipation. But Brian Burns, man, this guy is a different breed.
Yeah.
Cornerstone of the Panthers. I think one of the things that's most impressive about him is just his bend that he has. His speed around the rush arc, the lower body flexibility, just his quickness, just how quickly he's able to invade, pressure the quarterback. So I think how they're able to hold up against him, but also Derek Brown, is going to be critical. And then Rashard White against Frankie Louveau, I think is just one that I'm excited to see. Rashard White has obviously been a huge emphasis in the offense this year for the Bucs, whether it's getting him in space, his ability to get north and south, make the initial guy miss, the screens, or what he was able to do against the Colts, kind of through the interior, his physicality on those between the tackle runs. But Frankie Louveau he's a guy that can mirror and match backs, can disrupt passing windows, is good in coverage, kind of can do things all over the field. So I think that's going to be big. It's kind of how are they able to offset, and they're probably going to, whether Rashad's, kind of getting him on a chip or whatever, they're probably going to be matched up many times throughout this game. So how those pan out, I think could go far in this game.
I like that. So my first one-on-one is Carlton versus Adam Thielen. I feel like Adam Thielen is just like that's their thing. That's their offense. That's it. Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
That's basically, particularly in the receiving game. I don't know that we've played another team that is so dependent on one person in the receiving game the same way that they are. The closest, I think, is the Titans, where you have DeAndre Hopkins.
Right.
And we did a great job against him. And look what happened in that game.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is a great opportunity for our defense to get to key in on someone, shut them down, and then we saw what a recipe for success that was against the Titans, where it was saying that it was like you had the one guy in the run game, you had the one guy in the pass game that's like, this is it, stop these people. And they did a great job of that, held them, in that game to under, I think, 30 yards. If you can hold Adam Thielen, I think you're doing pretty good. I think that's a pretty set, like, stop this, you mostly stop their offense. So I think that one's going to be really important. And just to see if Carlton can, again, keep that momentum from this last game. That he had so many great plays in this last game, and coming off of being on the injury report, where we didn't even know if he was going to be healthy. We didn't know what kind of percent he was going to be at. So if he was able to put that kind of game together, I'm really hopeful if he can string 2 in a row, that it's going to be that confidence booster that is so important for those outside corners, of like feeling like you're the guy. And feeling like you can make those plays seems to make a really big difference. My other one-on-one, you went Luke, I went Tristan versus Brian Burns.
Love that.
Never, I'm sure he's going to just rush from all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
I just felt like Tristan is a little bit like I feel about Carlton of needing another good one. Like Tristan had not allowed a sack all season before 2 games ago. And then now that game he allowed one, but it was right after that injury he suffered. And then this last game allowed a couple there at the end of the game. And I have to imagine again that while I'm sure he would never use this, I'm sure that the injury and health stuff is a big part of it.
No doubt.
He's not going to say
right.
that.
They're not going to use that.
They're
as
not
an
going to use that.
excuse.
I'm allowed to use it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use it.
Do it, Casey.
So again, I don't know how he feels. Once you get to December, no one feels great. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's again like
No one's fully
hurt
healthy.
versus injured are always two different
Yes.
things. I am sure that every guy on this team is hurt, but
in some
as
form or
compared
fashion,
to
right.
injured. And that's always the line of like, no one is 100% at this point. But where are you at percent-wise? And when you are facing a guy like Brian Burns, I mean, when you're not 100%, it's tough. It's a tall order.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is another game where you need Tristan to be the Tristan that we know and love. And yet he's killed it in the move to left. He has absolutely crushed it this year.
Right.
But these last couple games have been a little bit tougher. And can you see a bounce back game against a very elite talent to kind of get you back where you need to be? So those are my two one-on-ones. How about position group for you? What are you watching?
I am going to go with one of them is sort of similar to what you had, but I'm going to start out, I did the offensive line, and then I did the DBs, Christian Izien and Antoine Winfield against Adam Thielen. But for offensive line, like we mentioned, against the Colts, they gave up 6 sacks, 9 hits. And, of course, like Coach just talked about it this week, Baker Mayfield talked about it. Some of them were just him holding on to the ball too long. But that's not ever anything you want to see. So how they're able to bounce back against Brian Burns, against Derek Brown, against that Panthers front, and how in pass protection they're able to hold up. But also, can they prove that the game against the Colts was not an anomaly in the exception, that they can continue to get the run game going, get the push up the middle, I think is going to be big in dictating kind of the pace and the flow of the game, how they're able to dial up those runs, get the play action going, get the bootlegs, get all of those things that Dave Canales wants to dial up. And then just for the DBs, you know, they use Adam Thielen a lot in the slot with, you know, the hip fluidity in and out of breaks and kind of what he's able to do there. And I think the Bucs defense has struggled a little bit with giving up the yards after catch and giving up kind of when they are in the zone off coverage. Opposing teams have kind of exploited those free releases and getting kind of things going on the deep overs or crossers, slants, whatever it is, comebacks in that kind of short to intermediate area of the field. So I think that's a big point of emphasis that Adam Thielen could potentially try to exploit against the Bucs. So how the DBs, how Christian Izien, if they move him kind of into that nickel role, and he's more of kind of going into the box, how they're able to kind of stack up against him. Because like you mentioned, their offense goes through him.
Yep.
So if you're able to minimize that, force them to be one-dimensional, force them to do something else, then I think that's going to go a long way on Sunday.
Yeah, so I went with our outside linebackers.
Okay.
For one thing, I've really enjoyed seeing that, you know, Yaya Diaby has earned some more playing time of, like, he's just done such a great job as a rookie and just a delightful guy and cool story, and just really happy for him with the production that he's been getting and just how exciting it is to have Yaya Diaby, Kalijah Kancey as this young up-and-coming core of your defense, I think is really cool. But, you know, it was interesting this last game when he got his start, it wasn't one of his more productive games. And then we saw Joe Tryon-Shoyinka have a really great game and get a sack. So I just think it is cool to see that, hey, you got two guys that are able to start, not start, whatever you want to decide to do. It'll be interesting to see just what this looks like down the stretch of how many snaps each guy is getting. And I was thinking about how for Bryce Young, I think he's been sacked 40 times this year, something along those lines, which it's rough.
Ground
it's rough.
a lot.
So he has been responsible for 12 turnovers and 8 interceptions and 4 lost fumbles. So I think that when it's a rookie like this, you want to pressure him, you want to get him uncomfortable.
Him under duress, yeah.
And also, he is a shorter quarterback.
Yes.
And we have some long, tall outside linebackers where I feel like this is where you get your arm up in there, you close those passing windows, you get in his face, you make it a lot harder for him to see down the field. So I think our outside linebackers are going to be really important in terms of limiting, you know, his comfortability in the pocket, maybe throwing that arm up there, the vision, all of that. Yeah. So I feel like this could be a really good game for them. And then it's so funny. We always talk about position groups or one-on-ones. We almost never pick like Baker because it's like you don't think of it almost as like a position group. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick Baker as my position group to watch, but I'm also going to kind of do it as the quarterback position in case he isn't super healthy.
Right.
And you do need a Kyle Trask for a little while. Like, I don't really know, how that's all going to shake out. Like, how healthy is he? I'm hopeful that he seems like he's good to go at this point in terms of what he's, been doing practice-wise on the injury report.
Right.
But I feel like this is a game where, again, like the Panthers are tied for 27th with a turnover ratio of -7 because their defense has only generated 7 takeaways all year. So
Wow.
Bryce Young, we talked about the fact, like, yeah, he's had 12 turnovers. It's not horrible in terms of his rate, but their ratio is not good because they haven't generated turnovers. So if you can force Bryce Young into some stuff, but then protect the ball, like this is kind of the recipe of part of the Panthers' issues. We all know that of all stats that dictate how a game is going to go, turnover ratio is typically one of the most important. Mm-hmm. And we've seen that the Bucs were doing an amazing job of that early in the year, that our ratio was phenomenal. These last few games, we've seen a few more interceptions, lost fumbles, Baker trying to maybe extend some things, do a little too much or whatever. Is this a game where he can really lock down on that, protect the ball, and still be able to make some of those amazing plays that we saw him make to Mike Evans, to Godwin, to Cade, to Payne, that I think that this game, the turnover ratio is going to be really important, and seeing some of those decisions that Baker makes. All right, so for you, keys to the game.
For keys to the game, I don't think it's so much what the Panthers are doing. For me, in this one, it's fixing the things that have plagued the Bucs this season. So whether that's minimizing the penalties, whether it's being able to finish drives, get in the end zone, but also, continue to get the run game going, to get those things sparked, to kind of open up the offense. And even for the defense, they held the Colts to only allowing 2 conversions on 11 third down attempts. That is insane. Wow. 2 of 11.
Yep.
So continuing to get pressure, get in Bryce Young's face, force him to make errant throws, force him into mistakes, and just let kind of Todd Bowles dial up those incredible blitz packages, the stunts, whatever, that we love to see. But I just want to see a clean, complementary game. I think against the Colts you saw, like you mentioned, the fumble, you saw the drops, and kind of all of these things that are just kind of poor execution. And like they've said, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. This isn't something that they're just beating us or we're outmatched or whatever. It's just we're making these mistakes that are putting us behind the chains and putting us, we are in position to win, but we're just not able to finish the game and finish strong. So how are they able to do that against this Panthers team?
I love when we just have the synergy between us and the things that we pick. My key to the game, I just picked one. I normally have more. I picked one, and I said third down defense. That was my thing I said.
Love it for us.
We allowed, this is again stealing a Scott Smith stat from our Insider Show.
Always.
He comes up with the best ones.
He does.
We allowed.
Where do you find these?
I know, right? It's like it's his job.
Share the love,
It's like it's his job. So we allowed 50.5% conversion rate the first 7 games, which was last in the league.
Yeah, not great.
Not great.
Not great.
But then now these last 4 games, we've allowed 31.9%, which is 6th in the league. We went from last to 6th in the difference in the first 7 through these last 4. I love that. Mm-hmm. For one thing, regardless of what the record is, what you always want to see is improvement.
Yes.
Right? You want to see growth. You want to see progress. That, of course, you want it to be wins. But regardless of everything else going on, you want to see progress in your team. And, man, that is some progress in that third down area. And especially, I remember it wasn't even just that they were giving up third downs. Earlier in the season, they were giving up third and longs a lot, which are just a backbreaker, momentum killer. And to see that they have made such strides in that area in Todd Bowles' defense is a great sign. Right. And like you said, when you have a rookie quarterback, if you can be getting off the field every time on third down, like, that's a huge deal.
Well, it's demoralizing for
it is. It's sad. And it's also, if you want to be able to get to those third downs where then you can pin your ears back, go after him. Yes. So that's my key to the game as well. All right, time for our quote of the week.
Yes. So I actually picked 2 today.
Yeah.
I was just feeling it. So I did Dave Canales.
We picked the same
Did we seriously?
one.
Well, it's a good thing I chose 2 then. So I had Dave Canales on Mike Evans because, why not? And then I loved Kalijah's quote on Vita. Vita Vea. It was great. Okay, so first Dave's.
Yep.
Wait, which one did you choose?
I know. I think we chose slightly different ones. We both chose quotes where he talked about Mike Evans. But as I'm reading what you have.
Did you do Baker's?
No, I did Canales on Mike Evans.
Oh.
He just talked about him a whole lot. So
Okay. So I don't think anything summarizes this man's career better than this. But he said, I think this guy is a first ballot Hall of Famer. His career speaks for itself. The way that he's able to find, access, and get open in any scenario, I would have to give it to Mike. I don't want to take anything away from Tyler Lockett, Doug Baldwin, DK Metcalf, who are fantastic players, but this is a guy who kind of puts it all together. He's 6'5", with that length, and we've seen it in games too, where he can flat out run by guys still at this point. He really does have it all. And I just love that because this is a guy that has had 9 straight 1,000-yard seasons every single year. It's hard for a player to have 2 or 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. And not only has Mike Evans been able to have the consistency and the longevity, but he's done it with several different offensive coordinators. He's done it with a ton of different systems.
He's
done it with different quarterbacks
Yep.
with no consistency.
Yeah.
But yet he's been able to still hit that milestone. And it's not even like it's something that he even really focuses on, as people have mentioned. He just goes out there, does his job, and he gets it. And to be mentioned in the same breath as Randy Moss, and Jerry Rice, and all of these guys, he is up there in the numbers in his career. That is the trajectory that he is on. So
this is funny. I
love
just
that
thought
quote.
about this quote again. I feel like I'm going to start getting made fun of here because I feel like this is the second time that I'm going to quote something related to like Marvel or comic books on the show, and I'm leaning into it. It made me think, and I hope I get it right because you know that the people that love Marvel, they know the things. So God, I hope I get this. I know. I really hope I get this right. But I feel like so Thanos comes in and has his quote of like, "I am inevitable." And I feel like that's Mike Evans.
Oh my God, he needs that on a T-shirt.
Right? Like, I am inevitable. I don't care what quarterback there is, what coordinator
and just, like,
there is.
on the photo, just him, like, catching a back shoulder fade.
Yep.
And just, oh my God,
I am inevitable.
That would be epic.
Really hope I nailed that it was Thanos that said it. Really hope that was right.
Well, I sure
so
hope
sorry
that's
to everybody.
the quote, because that was great.
I know the quote. I just hope I got it right of who it is. I really hope that was accurate.
that.
Please don't come for me, everybody, if I was wrong. But yeah, that's what I started thinking about as you talked about that. So yes. give your other quote.
And then I loved, of course, everybody was asking him about the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Month, all of these things. And I loved, so they asked him about playing with Vita Vea. And he said, it's been awesome. A guy like Vita, who pretty much has played against everybody in this league, when we're out there on the field, he sees different formations and stuff like that. He alerts me and helps me out in plenty of ways. And I think that's maybe something that can get a little lost in translation through everything. You see the production each of them have, but even during training camp when Kalijah had the calf injury, wasn't able to really do much, he's just standing on the sideline, even then you could see him over with Vita on the side. They're talking through rush plans, they're motioning out different maneuvers together, they're working through it as a team. And I think on the field you're starting to kind of see just their synergy together, the way that, you know, they feed off of one another, and say Vita's kind of eating up blockers, and so that frees up Kalijah Kancey to get to the quarterback, or it frees him up to invade the backfield to get the tackle for loss, and vice versa, when Kalijah Kancey's taking on more attention as a rookie with the way that he's playing. And I think just to kind of see that development in the interior and what Kalijah Kancey's been able to bring, I think has been really exciting, but also just to see the work that's put in behind this closed door. I mean, even when he was at Pittsburgh, and I did a story back after we drafted him and was talking with Charlie Partridge, his defensive line coach at Pitt, and just, I mean, every single week they would meet together on Wednesdays after the film and go over his rush plan, go over the things that he needed to do, and just kind of building that camaraderie, but just his desire to be great and the work that he puts in. And I think you're starting to see that obviously translate to the NFL. The film study, the urgency that he plays with, and the desire to want to be not only great in this league, but to be one of the best defensive tackles in the game.
I love that. So mine was, again, Dave Canales on Mike Evans. What I loved is I felt like it spoke to who Mike Evans is on a larger competitive scale. So he said, he was, again, asked about Mike and what he brings, and he said, it's that gamesmanship, right? One of the things I've learned about Mike in the offseason, getting a chance to spend some time with them in different scenarios outside of the building, is he is such a gamer. He loves to play whatever it is. He's a competitor, whether it's cards, whether it's darts, pool, shooting around basketballs. He's good. He just kind of finds a way, and he's good at everything. That carries over to the way he plays. He sees leverage, he sees coverage, he's seen it all, and he has an adjustment for whatever they do. It is great to just have a guy like that that makes pretty normal play calls look fantastic. Isn't that every offensive coordinator's dream, right?
Yes.
We look at the still shot on the sideline, and there wasn't anybody in the picture on his touchdown, the first one. I love just having him over there and giving us that ability for them to have to go put extra people out there. Then that opens up other things for us. Mike continues to amaze me with some of those things. So I also love that. It is so true. Mike is competitive in all the things all the time.
Oh, yes,
Doesn't matter
yes.
what is happening. And also I just want to shout out Mike that this week is a couple of his Mike Evans Family Foundation events. He not only is killing it on the field, killing it in the community, per usual. He's hosting a bunch of kids here at the facility, giving them some gifts for the holidays, some food, a tour, all that kind of stuff. He does that every year. And then he's also got his annual bowling event, which is a big fundraiser and gets a chance to bring, a lot of kids and give them a chance to bowl. And
And once again, the competitiveness comes
so,
out in the bowling.
Absolutely. So, so that was one of the human interest things I wanted to bring up. We always close the show with a human interest thing, so I wanted to shout out Mike for that. And then I also wanted to let everybody know that the Bucs are doing a bit of a off the field community initiative this week, where we are calling everyone part of the crew, which means if you are listening, that is you, to support Habitat for Humanity Hillsborough. So it's an initiative we're doing up to this game, right? So the game is on 12/3. So we're asking everybody to donate $12.03 ahead of the game. And you can find the link on our website. I'll go ahead and say it now, but it's to try and make it short. It's bccn.rs/impact. And again, if you're driving while you listen to this or doing something else, you can find it on our website if you weren't able to write that down. But if you're able to give that amount, less, more, anything is greatly appreciated, wanting to really make a difference in the affordable housing community here in Tampa while the Buccaneers do that. So that is going to do it for us on another edition of Tampa 2. We hope you enjoy the game. We'll see you next time.